Heatherwick Studio is a design studio based in King's Cross. It's over 25 years old. It was set up by Thomas Heatherwick straight after he graduated from college. And we're now over 200 designers, makers, architects, exhibition designers, a complete mix of disciplines. And we have 30 live projects now. We pretty much work all over the world, but we don't like to specialise in any one typology, in any one kind of scale. We like to keep it very open to what kind of design challenge we'll take on. And we've been based in King's Cross for over 15 years now. So where we are now, this is our kind of our hub, but we have 4 other spaces around here. So all of the designers and everybody who works at the studio is all based in King's Cross, apart from a few people who are out on site. The project's in construction. And I'm Lisa Finley. I'm one of the group leaders at the studio. I'm also a partner, and the group leader is a kind of senior management role, and we're responsible for all aspects of design projects from concept through to final execution. And it's also a kind of strategic business role as well, so we're involved in some of the business planning and future planning of the studio. So we don't have satellite design studios, but we do have designers in site offices. So we have that in California, we have that in Shanghai. The project we've recently completed in Cape Town, that involved a designer going back and forward very regularly. So we try to make sure that we have, site presence as we need it, but really the design and everything happens in London, and that's how we try to orchestrate it. Yeah, there are many disciplines in our team, and the way we work is so we kind of want ideas to come from anywhere. So in our teams, the makeup is not just designers. There's all different kinds of designers in our team, and the way we work is we work in bays. So you can see here we've got these kind of bays of about 8 or 10 people. I guess the way we work is we try and work with all these different disciplines in mind. So at the studio we have designers, architects, we have exhibition designers, product designers, graphic designers, archivists. So we have a whole mix, and when we work together we want to kind of harness all those different disciplines. So the workspace is very much an open space, and the way we work is so that everybody can really see what's going on in a particular project at that time, and it allows for kind of chance interactions of somebody to come up and say, well, what's happening here? Why are you doing this? So we really try and cultivate that kind of those kind of things to happen, because that's where we think the interesting crossover between disciplines comes in, and I think that's what this workspace is trying to achieve, is that crossover between disciplines, and it's kind of what we try to infuse in our work. So this space, originally we've been here. I think we acquired it about 15 years ago, and we've been in it for about 10 years. And there was, it was originally designed to be a restaurant, is my understanding. And then we took it over and we tried to create an identity to this space. So you can see the kind of concrete frame has all been grip blasted back. So you see a kind of really interesting concrete to the texture. And then the whole space around has objects everywhere. So it's quite, visually, it's a bit like a visual assault when you come in. There's so many different things to look at, and there's so many different objects, from models that we've made from very interesting things from around the world that Thomas or the designers collect as they travel, to just kind of historic products or anything like that, to really spark ideas and to spark conversation. So that's kind of how this space is intended to be. And so we have a workshop as well within this space here. We have actually 3 workshops altogether, but I think one of the most special things about this workspace is the workshop, and it's, aside from this big open plan space here where we have meeting rooms and bays and the kitchen and all flowing into one, the workshop is the biggest single space, and that has a team of around 15 makers, full-time makers, who help all the project teams kind of realise the ideas that they're thinking about. So we're constantly testing, constantly physically making things, And I think that's something that's very important about the studio, which is making, and that is something we try and have all the way throughout our workspace, is this feeling of making and what comes from making. So I guess the starting point is to try and understand what is the problem that we're trying to solve. So you'll get a brief from a client, you'll be asked for a design of some sort, but then what we do is really try and question that and see what is the underlying problem that we see, and that's what we try and focus on and channel for the design. So if you take the example of Zeitz Mocha, we knew that this was to be an art gallery. We knew that there had to be spaces to display art, but what we were interested in is how do you work with this building that has actually no space to show art, and how do you create a space to draw people? So it's trying to tease out what that underlying problem is that wants to be solved, and there's a lot of sketching and trying to distill what that is, but there's a lot of conversation and debate as well. So that the initial period is really about that kind of questioning what is fundamental about what the client has asked us to do, and it isn't as straightforward as just what they've asked for. It's usually something that we try and tease out, and then there's a lot of once we kind of feel like we have an understanding of what that problem is that we're trying to solve, then there's a huge sort of approach of how do we then tackle that, and that's when the kind of the sketching will come in, the sketch models, and I think what's quite interesting about the setup of the workspace is you can we have these bays, and we have a central table, and then we have the kind of pin-up space as a sort of base, and you can always tell what stage a project's at by what's in the middle of the table. Sometimes it's just this mound of really loose sketch models and a whole lot of post-it notes on the pinboard, and you go, right, they're at the beginning of a project, because that's you can just see that the energy and the stage that they're at. And then as you move through projects, you'll see if you've got a whole mound of material samples in the center, you'll know that they're moving towards that stage of execution. So yeah, it's usually a very intensive period, and we do a lot of making at that stage, working in the workshop, and we every designer has an induction in the workshop so that everyone has a fluency with what's in there, because sometimes just making something quickly can communicate something much quicker than other ways. So we use that tool a lot. So I think one of our real focuses is on human scale and understanding how people interact with buildings, and some of the kind of really small details that can make the difference to somebody enjoying a space or not. So although a lot of our projects are very on the larger side of things, larger scale, we focus a lot on the human aspect, the materials, what you touch. So on some of our projects, I'm thinking about coal drops. There was a kind of a big urban move to create a new public space, and an outdoor covered public space, and that was one of the core thinking of the design. But then moving that through all the way to the lift buttons, where people are going to touch these buttons, and however many thousands of people are going to touch that every day, that's where we want to focus our attention, where it makes a difference and makes something memorable and something interesting to an experience. Because I think there can be many spaces where I guess your interest isn't piqued in any way. You almost get desensitized to spaces that you don't find interesting, or spaces that don't bring you any joy at all. So we're trying to bring that element into the work that we do, and I think we're very interested in spaces that are accessible to everybody, public, that have a real public dimension to them. So that's what we try to bring into the project, whichever typology it is. We're very excited about the public dimension. So where can everybody gather? Where can everybody be brought together? And that's where we focus most of our energy.